All right. Well, Holy Scripture, the primary source of prophetic ethics. Well, you know what? Let's stop right there. I'm there with him, and we just can shut the book and agree. So, Holy Scripture is the primary source of prophetic ethics. Great. All right. So, what does he mean by that? All right. So, he goes on to say that Holy Scripture is the primary source of prophetic Christian ethics. Well, that sounds great. Prophetic ethics seeks to, he quotes, to consider important issues in Christian ethics on the basis of an informed focus on the teachings and practices of Jesus, in the context of the prophetic tradition of Israel, yet in dialogue with other important approaches, both historic and contemporary. That's the end of the quote there. So our moral formation always takes place in the context of the struggle for justice in our local community as we simultaneously think globally about human flourishing in the community of creation. That's where I think we diverge on what he was talking about versus now he's moving on. So our focus should be on Scripture, but then that moral formation always takes place, he says, in the context of the struggle for justice in our local communities. And so here's kind of where we get more of the social aspect to it.
Yeah, and notice here this emphasis here on Israel is many people have pointed out that this is problematic, right? Because the church is different than Israel. And yet he's going to base basically a lot of what he has to say on how God dealt with Israel in the Old Testament and what they were supposed to do and what Jesus talked about, right? And doesn't, I mean, today what we would suggest is the churches gets its marching orders, of course, from the Old and New Testament and from what Jesus said, but more specifically, the letters that were written specifically to the church, right? Mm-hmm. And so we don't see a whole lot of that kind of thing in this social ethical type of approach. They focus on Old Testament Israel and what God had to say to them, and then what Jesus said and did in his coming. Nothing wrong with that, and we should do that. We should gather principles from that. But it seems to me like God is doing something different with regard to the church than he did with the nation of Israel.
Right. That was going to be my clarifying point because one of my favorite passages, actually, I just read it the other day with my family, was Romans 9, and there's a clarification between kind of the ethical or the ethnic and spiritual understanding of who Israel is. But when it comes to the nation of Israel, we're going to have to make sure we keep clear the distinction between those principles there. And finally, he talks about here in this portion that we seek to proclaim and embody God's justice in and for the world, shaped by Holy Scripture, tradition, culture, critical reasoning, and personal experiences. Well, he seems to kind of take all this, the good aspects of the other three models that we've looked at, and seems to be presenting this fourth way here. So maybe he'll win me over yet.
Yeah. So that's his. So that's kind of his introduction here with regard to the Holy Scriptures and its role in what he calls his prophetic ethics. It's the primary source of prophetic ethics.